A teenage academy player gets called up by his national team for a World Cup qualifier. He plays, he works, his club pays his salary, his medical bills, his insurance, the entire time he's gone. For that, his club gets paid about $11,000 a day. FIFA, meanwhile, is sitting on a World Cup worth nearly $11 billion. Let's talk about where that gap actually comes from. Picture a small club, not a giant, not Real Madrid. A mid-table club that spent years developing a 19-year-old midfielder, coaches, physios, travel, education, all of it. For years, before he ever earns the club a transfer fee, then his national team calls him up for World Cup qualifiers. The club has to release him. No choice, that's the rule. He's gone for 2 weeks. The club keeps paying his wages, keeps paying for his insurance. If he gets injured playing for his country, the club still foots the medical bill. And what does the club get in return for lending out the player they spent years building? A few $1,000s a day. Multiply that by every academy, every mid-table club, every federation around the world, and you start to see the shape of the actual argument here. I'm Zig. Welcome to Learn Finance with Zig. Let's get into the money. Let's start with the number in the title, because it deserves context. FIFA's projected total revenue for the 2026 World Cup cycle is expected to exceed $10.9 billion, a 56% increase compared to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, which generated $7 billion. Where's that growth coming from? Sponsorship revenue alone is projected to exceed $2.8 billion, a record, and matchday revenue, tickets and hospitality, could rise from roughly $950 million in Qatar to as much as $3 billion in 2026, a 216% jump, mostly because the tournament expanded to 48 teams. Zoom out even further, and the total economic footprint of the 2026 tournament, government spending, host city budgets, sponsor activations, visitor spending has been estimated at $13.9 billion by a joint FIFA and World Trade Organization analysis. That's where the billions in the title comes from. Now let's look at the other side of the ledger. What actually reaches the people whose talent makes any of this possible? Here's where it gets interesting. Players on national duty at a World Cup aren't paid by FIFA directly for that release. Their clubs are, through something called the Club Benefits Program. For the 2026 cycle, FIFA has set aside $355 million to compensate clubs for releasing players for World Cup qualifiers and the tournament itself. That's actually a record. It's a nearly 70% increase compared to the $209 million distributed after the 2022 World Cup. So how does that translate per player? The fund is divided by the total number of player days, creating a standardized per player daily rate, currently about $11,000 per player per day, depending on tournament length. Sounds decent for a daily rate, but remember, that money goes to the club, not the player's pocket. The player's actual wages are still being paid by his club at his normal salary the whole time. The club benefits money is really compensation for the club's risk, injury risk, wage cost, losing the player from domestic competition, not extra income for the athlete himself. This program has existed since 2010, sharing hundreds of millions of dollars among clubs whose players were selected for each World Cup finals tournament. Starting in 2026, it now extends to every club that releases a player, even just for qualifying matches, which sounds generous, until you compare it to the size of the pie it's coming from. Let's put these two numbers next to each other. FIFA's projected 2026 revenue, $10.9 billion. Total club benefits payout to compensate every club worldwide for every released player across qualifying and the tournament, $355 million. That's roughly 3% of FIFA's projected revenue, going not to players, but to their clubs, as compensation for the club's costs. Meanwhile, FIFA itself operates as a non-profit and does not pay dividends or distribute profits to shareholders. In theory, every dollar flows back into football through development funding, operational costs, prize money, and club compensation. That's the official framing. The reality, according to critics, is more contested. Much of that investment gets spread thin across 211 member federations in fixed grants. While the commercial engine of the tournament, the players whose performances generate the broadcasting deals and sponsorship value in the first place, see comparatively little of the direct windfall. So why does this gap exist? Because FIFA's business model isn't built around paying players. It's built around selling broadcasting rights, sponsorships, and hospitality packages for a tournament that requires players but doesn't employ them. Players are employed by their clubs. FIFA's only direct financial obligation to the football ecosystem is through programs like club benefits, prize money paid to national federations, and development grants. National federations then decide how much of any prize money trickles down to the players themselves, and that varies wildly by country. Some federations pay bonuses generously. Others have been accused of withholding or delaying payments to their own players for years. So the almost nothing in this video's title isn't really FIFA shorting individual superstars. The genuinely elite players are still extremely well paid by their clubs. It's about everyone underneath that tier. Academy graduates, mid-table club players, and entire federations operating on grants that haven't scaled anywhere near as fast as FIFA's own revenue has. The pie grew 56%. The compensation pool grew about 70% off a much smaller base, and it's still under 4% of total revenue, going to clubs, not players. So here's the actual picture. FIFA is heading toward its most lucrative World Cup ever, nearly $11 billion in projected revenue. The club compensation system that exists to support the players who make that revenue possible is real, and it has grown, but it remains a small fraction of the overall pie. And even
This
then,
isn't really a story about
clubs,
anyone stealing
not players
money.
directly. It's a story about how revenue in global football is structured. Broadcasters and sponsors pay FIFA. FIFA pays federations and clubs through fixed programs. And what reaches an individual player's pocket depends entirely on which link in that chain they're standing on. Worth knowing next time someone tells you football is a wash in money for everyone involved. For most of the people actually playing it, not quite. If this opened your eyes, smash that like button, subscribe to Learn Finance with Zig, and drop a comment. Did you know the club compensation system worked this way? I'll see you in the next one. Stay smart, stay wealthy.